Hi and welcome to this 2021 winter update. This is just a bit of an overview of what's happened in the last year and what I propose to do in the next coming 12 months. We'll start off with the Benelli TNT since I'm standing here in front of it. And those of you who follow the channel will have realised that I've just done a hydraulic clutch conversion kit to this particular bike. The original cable clutch was rather heavy on the hand and I was certainly having problems with my left hand. Part of that is aging, but the hydraulic clutch conversion kit was certainly worth it in the end, though if you've seen the videos you realise that I had quite a few little problems along the way. Now, the other things I've got to do to this bike over the coming 12 months is it needs a new front tyre, so I'll have to fit that. And I've also got an issue with the starter motor relay. And I've bought another relay and I propose to fit that sometime in the next couple of weeks, so I'll probably do a video on that as well. Apart from that, the bike is still in very good condition. Nothing else really needs to be done to it. A service will probably be coming up. And if you're interested in what's involved in a service on this, I actually did a video many years ago in around 2008 or 2007 on servicing the Benelli TNT. And I did that down at A1 Motorcycles at the time, and I covered a complete general service including valve clearances, oil change and such like. So if you're interested in watching that video, that is only in standard definition though. It's not a particularly high res because at the time it was released on DVD, but it's there nonetheless. I can actually put a link in the description below if you're interested in that particular video. So we'll move on to the Moto Guzzi Le Mans. Now, I haven't done a huge amount to that in the past year. I have replaced the starter motor on it because the pinion gear on the original starter motor was badly worn, and while originally parts were available for those Bosch starter motors, the parts seem to have dried up and obviously no new parts are available, so it was really just new old stock or second-hand parts were available. So I replaced that with actually a Chinese-made starter motor and it seems to be working quite well. I mean, I haven't used the bike extensively in the past year, but yes, I've had no real complaints or issues with it so far, and certainly the price was well worth it. The other things I've done to that bike is I also had an issue with a couple of the push rods in that the top ends, the little cups on the top of two of them had come loose, and I've Loctited those in place, and at the next service I'll be taking those out and having a look and see if that Loctite has held up. Oh, and I've also replaced the front tyre on the Le Mans. There's a video on that as well, if you're interested in how to get a front wheel in and out of Le Mans. And yeah, I'm quite happy with the new tyre. Apart from that, there is really nothing I need to do to the bike in the coming year except ride it. But because of the pandemic, of course, our riding season was cut fairly short in summer here in Melbourne, Australia. And I haven't really been able to get out as much as I would like on any of my bikes. So they've had not a huge number of miles put on them over the past year and a half. Now the Giulia Saturno, again, if you follow the channel, you will have known that I had an issue with the rebuilt water pump and I had to rebuild the pump again. The actual cam belt pulley came off the pump. Fortunately, I didn't have a catastrophic failure. The bike still ran and I actually rode it home and was totally unaware of the problem until I actually pulled up, parked the bike and had a look and realised that there was a hole in the cam belt cover where the pulley was starting to poke through. The belt was still running on the pulley was still turning, a bit not at the same speed as the shaft that it was meant to be attached to. And yeah, so I dodged a bullet on that one again. Other things I've done on that bike over the past year, I've replaced the fan thermostat switch on it, and I also replaced the countershaft sprocket oil seal on that bike because it was weeping a bit of oil. And more recently, I also replaced the rear taillight. I was coming home from a ride a few months ago and discovered that the rear taillight lens had gone. It had just fatigued, fractured and broken and disappeared, and there was only a little nubbin left attached to the taillight. It took me a while to track down another taillight. It's not a particularly common taillight. It is used obviously on the Giulia and also some models of Ducati's Super Sports from the late 80s. The one I got was for a 750 SS. Unfortunately, there is very little new old stock available, so I had to go for a pattern replacement. It's not quite the same as the original, but it's very close, and only a dedicated Giulia file would probably notice a difference. The interesting thing with that particular taillight was it came with a bulb, but the two screws that held the bezel on were not included. Go figure. I just find that a little bit strange. But one thing I did find when I fitted the taillight was that the rear taillight mount, which is unique to these Isle of Man editions, which were a sort of custom version of the bike that was produced in Japan from the base model Giulias. They had a number of alloy parts on them. There was an alloy catch tank for the radiator, the rear taillight mount, and well, actually I think that's about it in alloy. And plus there was also the twin exhaust system, and it had a different fairing seat and often had different forks and rear shocker. I found that rear taillight mount had actually fractured and was about to fall off, so it was probably the vibration of that rear mount that caused that taillight lens to fracture and come off. Hopefully I'll get a better lifespan out of the new one. So the Giulia is pretty much ready for the coming riding season. The water pump seems to be working flawlessly. I've had no minor leaks or issues with that, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with the bike. There's a few little cosmetic things I would like to tidy up on it. Maybe I'll get round to that this year. But primarily I just intend to ride it and enjoy it. That's pretty much it for my bikes. Now my wife's bike, I haven't done a huge amount to that over the last year, apart from give it its annual service. Now, because the speedo or the odometer no longer works on that bike, the electronic odometers on those top out at 9999. And that's it. You know, you have to replace the speedo if you wish to continue with the mileage count. Now with that particular bike, not quite sure where the mileage is, but certainly over 130,000 kilometres now. I'm probably getting close to 135,000 kilometres. I've done a little bit of maintenance to that. Apart from the oil change, as I said, I've replaced the speedo sensor on it, and I did a video on that if you're interested. But the most unusual fault I had on it was that both inlet manifolds came loose on the bike. In fact, the right-hand side lost a bolt completely. The bike was acting quite erratically at idle. It just was refusing to idle, and what it came down to when I put it up on the bike lift was that one of the bolts was missing on the right-hand side, and the other bolt was loose, and the left-hand side also, both bolts were loose. So on the right-hand side, the only thing holding the inlet manifold to the cylinder head was the throttle body itself and the pressure from the airbox behind that. So it was actually running quite lean at idle. I'm surprised it actually ran at all. And the interesting thing is, of course, is that those bolts wouldn't have been touched since the bike left the factory. And you would have expected that a steel bolt into an alloy head, it would have locked solid after, probably 15 years or so, probably a bit more actually. I can't remember what year it is now. I think it's 2004, 2005. Yeah, a really unusual problem. So I've replaced the bolt, tightened everything up, did a quick throttle body balance on that. That's one thing I do intend to do this year, is actually do a throttle body balance video on the 750 Brevia. It's something I've been meaning to do for quite some time, but I really wanted to nut out the way I do it in a organised and logical manner so that it would be easy to explain on video. So that's something I certainly intend on doing over the coming year. And I've also added some new t-shirt designs to my online shop. I'll put the link in the description below and also on the screen. I've added a classic Laverda 750 SFC, an MV Agusta 750S, a Moto Guzzi Le Mans, the Mark I model, and also Ducati 900 SS, amongst a few others in there as well. So if you'd like to support this channel, check out my t-shirts and maybe make a purchase or two. Now, I think that's about it for everything. I have done some tidying up of the workshop. As you can see, I've got most of my tools into a tool trolley back here and a tool chest. I bought this from our local hardware chain, Bunnings. They were on special. I noticed though that the same tool trolley and chest is for sale in the UK, pretty much identical to this, but in America, you Americans seem to get a slightly different model, and I think it's actually marked made in the USA, whereas this one is made in China. I've also done some other tidying up around the workshop. I do have to get a new electric motor for my lathe as well, because the electric motor on that shorted out, a bit of swarf got into it, and that was the end of it. You know, a lot of smoke and fury, you might say, when that went. I was right in the middle of cutting something at the time. So I think that's about it for this particular winter update, and I'll catch you next time.